Hey everybody, welcome back. Now, I know I've been doing book reviews, but today's video is going to be a little bit different. Different because of a couple of things. The first of which, I read Tony Fadell's book Build about 3 weeks ago, and I don't remember a ton of it. I have reviewed it, but it's one of those books that every chapter is so unique that there isn't one thing that he focuses on that I'm like, oh yeah, that thing blew my mind. It was kind of like the collection of his knowledge has now rubbed off on me, and so now I'm going to kind of share my thoughts and opinions, not necessarily just about this book, but about kind of business in general and kind of where I'm at with everything, the lessons that I've learned, and I've put together seven different ideas. I've put together 7 different kind of reflections as to my knowledge base on business thus far, and I thought I would just go from there. My wife and I are celebrating 1 year of being married, and so I don't have a ton of time to make this video, hence the reason that we're doing this a little bit more sporadically / you're getting my unfiltered thoughts, which I hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so the first kind of lesson idea that I learned from this book was actually something he mentioned in regards to managing. And what he says is that most employees, they just focus on like 1 month out in the project that they're working on. He says, but if you want to start thinking like a CEO or a manager or an owner, you have to be thinking about multiple areas, whether that be marketing, sales, R&D, kind of all those different aspects of a business, alongside what you're currently focused on or the project that you've been assigned to work on. And he says, when that happens, what you do is you transition from this is my thing that I'm working on to this is the thing that we are building together as a company. And that's really what it means to be a good manager, good CEO, good business owner, good team player, a little bit of everything. But really what you're doing is you're saying, I care about this company, which then makes you more hireable, more desirable in other settings or the one that you're currently in. So if you want to continue to grow as a leader, if you want to grow as a person who cares about business, try to act like the manager, even if you're not the manager. And I don't necessarily mean try to call the shots like the manager. I mean, care about the things that the manager cares about. So that's the first point. The second point, and I wish I would have learned this a bit sooner, and it's the idea of prototyping. I feel like prototyping is oftentimes just viewed as a product-based approach to things. You know, it's like if you're trying to make the perfect wallpaper, just go with me, okay? If you're trying to make the perfect wallpaper, you kind of draw up a few different designs and you go, okay, this is the one I like, this is the one maybe I like aspects of it, I'm gonna bring this over there. But I think the same can be true for services. And I know this is a bit of a silly example, but for many, many years when I was a single bachelor, I would always go to the grocery store and I would try to find the most optimal path. I'm a bit crazy, but I try to find the most optimal path to getting all my groceries as efficiently as possible, knowing exactly what I was going to be making. I would go through every aisle and I would prototype. Okay, if I walk this way, is it going to make it faster? Is it going to make it slower? Interesting. I added a few seconds. Let's go that way. Oh, there it is. I saved about 10 seconds. And I did this weaving path through the right aisles that I needed to get the certain supplies to make chicken penne pesto pasta. For those of you who know me, you know. But that kind of approach can be applied to anything in life, whether you're a service-based business or product-based business, whether you're a leader, whether you're a follower, whatever it is, it's letting yourself be okay to make mistakes and iterate so that you continue to grow. And I think oftentimes the reason we don't do that is because we get locked in our ways. You know, the saying goes, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I just fundamentally disagree with that kind of mentality. If you're wanting to change, if you're wanting to grow as an individual or actually put energy towards something so that it becomes more robust, you have to find the weak points of the thing that may work and then press into those things so that they could work more efficiently. That's just kind of the difference between like a stable, content mentality and a growth mentality. In a growth mentality, you go, okay, what's working and what's not working the most optimally, and how can we workshop that or prototype it so that it could grow and become something better. Anyways, I'm rambling on at this point. Okay, the third thing that I've learned about business thus far is that you have to be honest about your ideas. Now, if you're anything like me, you have an idea and you think, man, this is the best idea anyone has ever come up with. I tend to overinflate the ideas that I have, and only through having a conversation with somebody else do I realize that the idea might be good. The practicalities of it might not necessarily stand on their own 2 feet. In other words, I might not have the capital, I might not have the time. There's a lot of real practical reasons why an idea might not work, or it might not be the right timing. Tony Fadell talks about that a lot. They wanted to launch the iPod. There it is. They wanted to launch the iPod well before it was ready to be launched. He was a part of another company that they were working on kind of a mobile music playing device, but it wasn't the right time. And when he joined Apple, that's when it actually came to life. Anyways, that's what it means to be honest with your ideas. You just have to have a realistic, sober-minded understanding of what it is that you're coming up with, when you're coming up with it, when you're planning to launch it, all those things. But the next point that I wanted to talk about is counting the cost of character. A lot of alliterations there. I don't think people give much thought to this, particularly in the business world, because it can be very money hungry, or it can be very competitive. And in any sort of like competitive nature, we tend to revert back to more of like, I don't know, like a primal way of doing things. Like if I'm gaining, that means someone else is losing, or vice versa. And that creates high levels of tension, and then people make mistakes, or they say things or do things that are not befitting of someone who has a high level of character. I'll never forget this. When I was back in school, one of the guys that was like leading the college, he would hang out with his friends, and oftentimes his friend would jump over the barriers, let's say to catch a train or sneak onto a bus. He would always say, it was the funniest thing, he's like, $2 that's what your character's worth? That's what your integrity was worth? $2? The sense that you're going to steal something that is so trivial, it speaks to the fact that there's a good chance that when the stakes are higher or the risk is more pressurized, you're likely going to make those kinds of mistakes. And so it's all about how to develop that sense of character beforehand, so that when you're in the position of leadership, you don't buckle under pressure. That's the fourth point, counting the cost of character. The fifth point, how many points do I have? I said I had 7 in the beginning. I think I have like 9 here. We'll see how many we get to. The next point is tell profound stories. One of the greatest tools that we have as a species is the ability to tell captivating stories. This is something I'm still learning how to do, but if you tell the right story around a product, if you tell the right story about a business, if you tell the right story as to why you start a business in the first place, the whole point you tell a story is because you connect with someone else's humanity. We are storytelling creatures. I find myself saying that quite often. We are ones who love to hear good stories, and we love to tell good stories, because what stories do is they give us a hope for not only the future, but they kind of enliven us for whatever task that you're tackling at the moment. When we're able to share stories, we're able to lead people. And when we're able to lead people, we're able to grow things and change things and make an impact on the world. A life without stories is not a life well lived. You have to make memories, you have to take trips, you have to connect with strangers. It's all kind of compounding on itself so that you can tell better stories that make a greater impact. Ooh, this is a good one. This is the one that I'm currently in, and it's the tension of learning and starting. What I mean by that is, how much information do you need to know? How much knowledge do you need to garner before you take the leap to start something? What's the kind of the cost benefit analysis of waiting versus starting? And I think there's a wisdom to determining these two things. Right now, I'm very much so, as you well know, I'm in the process of learning. I want to learn as much as I possibly can about business, so that if and when I do start up my own thing, that I have the knowledge base to back the starting mentality. There's another side of the wisdom, which is just starting, not knowing a whole lot and going for it and learning as you go. But I do think there's the right amount of tension between the two. You can learn what you need to learn about the fundamentals of business, but then once you've learned those things, it's starting and knowing that you're going to have to learn a ton more through the practical experience. And I think you can lean too far one way or another. You can not know enough and just go for it, and I think you're going to make mistakes that you could have mitigated if you would have learned a bit. And at the same time, I think you can get stuck in the ivory tower of information where you read 50 to 100 books and you're like, oh, I'm still missing certain information, which is true, but you actually don't have the courage to start the thing. Which kind of leads to the last point, which is having a courageous life. And a courageous life looks different for everyone, and I could do an entire video just on a courageous life. But what I think of that in regards to myself, I think of the courage to start this YouTube channel. You know, like, I have a professional job, I have family, I have friends, and yet I'm still choosing to awkwardly put myself out there on a public platform talking about a subject that I did not get a degree in. And it is a challenge of my own kind of endurance and or courage and or boldness, because I think there are a million reasons why something like this shouldn't work or won't work. And yet here I am, still kind of talking about business and all things YouTube. And so I think for you, you have to choose your own regrets in life, you know? Truth be told, I was either going to start a YouTube channel or I was going to get another master's degree. And while I still would love to get that master's degree, I think looking back, I would have regretted not chasing some sort of creative endeavor right now and where I'm at in my life. And so I kind of did this cost benefit analysis, and I said, you know what? The master's degree can wait. Take all that as you will. Again, Tony Fadell's book, Build. It's the unorthodox way of building things worth building. Anyways, I'm off to celebrate my 1-year anniversary with my wife, so hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.